Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 149.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow game, Jay Massey.
Hey guys, this is Jay. Now, we're going to get to the interview in just a second, but I got to say something, and I was just noticing, looking on iTunes, and I wanted to take a quick second. Like I said, I'm going to get you to the interview, and you're going to want to hear this one because it's just awesome. However, here's what we're going to do. Was noticing that we're approaching 150 episodes, and I'm excited about that. However, we're barely over 40 reviews. So we're trying to figure out what can we do. And we figured, hey, how about this? We set a goal. We were like, okay, by July 4th, we're going to go for having 100 total reviews. And we're going to ask you guys, you're the ones that are faithful listeners out there to help us get there. And here's what we're going to do. For everyone who has already reviewed us at least once, 5-star, we need the written kind of reviews. You're going to be entered into a drawing, and what we're going to do is we're going to give away 2 copies of the brand new version of the Cashflow 101 game, and all you have to do is put in a review. And again, we're trying to get there by July 4th, so we need to double the number of reviews, a little bit more than double the number of reviews that we currently have by July 4th. So if you guys can help us out, that would be great, because the way that you can participate in our mission to create more entrepreneurs and help people go out there to continue to provide clean, safe, affordable housing and become bigger, better, badder business owners, all you simply got to do is go to iTunes, leave us a review. And again, we're going to keep track of all of you that are faithful, that are out there helping us making that happen, and you'll be entered to win. Nothing else need be required. All right, here we go. All right, and welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I am your host, Jay Massey, and guess what? We're going to talk about cash flow today, and I know that that's absolutely surprising to you. You had no idea that that's what we were going to do, but here's what's more important. We're going to talk about it in a way that I don't think you're expecting. I mean, we've talked about businesses of all kinds. We've talked about, obviously, real estate, rental real estate, with commercial real estate, cell phone towers, all kinds of crazy stuff. But today, we're going to talk about what some would call, especially our guests, the number one best passive income strategy. We'll see if he's right about that. We're going to talk about land and cash flow, right? Doesn't sound like it goes together, but that's exactly what we're going to learn today, is how can you make land cash flow? I have a feeling that he knows how, because he's done it 5,000 times. That's a lot of property, ladies and gentlemen. And he actually thinks he knows what he's talking about. So let's find out as we listen to the Land Geek, Mark Podolsky. Mark, you there?
Hey, Jay.
How are you?
Love that intro. Thanks. I'm great.
I'm glad you're here. Now, we already know that you believe you've got the best passive income strategy. I get that, because that's what you say on your podcast. This is the passive income model that everybody should be using. We're going to talk about that for sure. But before we do, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, all entrepreneurs, in my opinion, are very similar to yesterday's superheroes. So when I think about Batman and Robin or the Flash or whomever you like, they all go around, they dress up funny, and they save people from their own mess in various different ways. Great. And I think entrepreneurs do the same thing. However, before they were those superheroes and willing to save people and commit their skills to the betterment of mankind, they had an origin story. Maybe their planet blew up or they got struck by lightning. Who knows? Something happened to them that made them super or decide to become super, and then they decided to serve others. So before you were out there transacting on thousands of properties and helping individuals with your podcast and resources to go out there and do the same. Who is Mark Podolsky?
Yeah. Wow. I love the way you framed that. Jay, do you care if I steal that?
Not at all.
That was genius.
Thank you.
Basically, my origin story is I was a very miserable, overworked, felt like I had no control, corporate refugee. I mean, I was working with private equity groups as an investment banker.
Oh.
And if we talk about having no control, right? You're the middleman there, a long sales cycle, 18 months, 24 months sometimes before you would get, hopefully this big commission check. And I had a 45-minute commute to work and back. I'm working in a cubicle. It's a very high pressure, high stress situation. You're getting micromanaged. And I'm thinking to myself, there's got to be a better way of doing things. There just has to be.
I hope so.
Yeah. So we hire this guy at my firm who was just brand new. And this is in 2000. And he's telling me that he's going to tax deed auctions, not tax lien, tax deed, where you actually get the property. Yeah. And he said he's buying property for like nothing and he's flipping it online. And I said, okay, that sounds amazing. What are your returns? He's like 300%. I said, no way. And I mean, Jay, I'm looking at companies all day long, probably over 1,000 companies a year, right? A great company had 15% EBIT margins, free cash flow. Your average company is 10%, and everything below that, around there, we'd see companies at 5 to 8%, right? He's telling me 300%. So I'm like, there's no way you're doing that. Take me to an auction. The only thing I've ever done in real estate up to this point is buy my house. And I've got a baby, and I was like 6 months old at the time. So I've got like $3,000 saved for car repairs. And because of the way our firm worked, I mean, I could make a good commission, but then I'd have to wait, I saved that money for a whole year. Right. So I didn't know when it would come again. So I only had like $3,000 saved for car repairs. So I go out, and sure enough, I bought, I think it was like 10 properties, half-acre properties in New Mexico at an average price of $300. $300 for a half acre. And the next week, I put it up online, and sure enough, they all sold for $900. So now I've got $9,000. So I take the $9,000 and I go to the next tax deed auction in Arizona, Southern Arizona. I mean, Jay, this is 2000. There's no one in the room. There's no one in the room.
Right.
I mean, we're buying properties for like nothing.
Right. And
that next auction, I must have spent, I spent all that money, but that $9,000 then became $90,000 over the next 6 months. So I go to my wife, I say, honey, I'm miserable. And I think this business could be something, this flipping land thing. She says, you are nuts. Absolutely not. I'm like, come on. She's like, no. She's like, don't quit your job. So I said, fine. I'm like, give me some time. I'm like, what's the worst thing that can happen? We own land. She's like, because that's what her big fear was. Like, what happens if you can't sell it? It's raw land. Who wants it? I'm like, people want it. I don't know. So I'm like, look. She's like, all right, fine. So 18 months, I did both. And once the land income exceeded the investment banking income, I quit.
Yeah.
So 2001, I quit, and I've been doing it ever since, full time. And I've got a 7-minute commute now. And I've got the 3 W's. I work when I want, where I want, and with whom I want. Nice. And I'm having a ball doing it.
Nice. Now, in the spirit of making sure that everybody can follow the story and stay up with us, because one of the things that is very, very true, having been a financial planner and you doing your investment banking, we could probably geek out and start talking a whole bunch of technical terms that nobody would get. Just for the sake of everybody listening, could you let us know what EBIT margins are?
Yeah, that's earnings before interest and taxes. And then there's a DA to it, depreciation
Right.
and amortization. So when we look at a company, we want to look at their free cash flow, right? And we'll take out all the other sort of creative expenses that a company will run through and get their real true free cash flow.
Exactly. Now, for those of you who want to see more of even just that explanation right there in action, remember, tune in on Fridays. On Fridays, we're still doing the Shark Tank recaps, and we talk a lot about what he just said there. Now, outside of that, what I find very interesting about your story, Mark, is that oftentimes I'm telling people, hey, look, just go get that shut up check. That's what I call it. It's that check that shuts up that voice in the back of your mind, and shuts up the voice coming from those who care about us, and says, okay, well, maybe this can work. And I'm like, he just made 90 grand and she still said no. That's like, wow, that's impressive to me, that it took more than that to be able to extricate yourself from that particular life. But I get it. I
was so scared to go out on my own.
Right.
And at the time, it just seemed like, I had a baby. I mean, it just seemed kind of irresponsible to quit my job because, I think you've said it before, like, I couldn't see the next step.
Right.
Necessarily. I couldn't see the whole staircase. I could just see the next step. And a part of me thought, well, this is just a lark, right? I mean, come on. How long can this go for?
People aren't going to need land tomorrow, are they? Nah, they're going to quit.
Yeah.
They don't need land forever.
Exactly. So, I was very skeptical myself that this was not sustainable. Mm-hmm. And I almost had to kind of prove it to myself. Like, yeah, maybe I'm just a flash in the pan here. Maybe I got lucky. So until I really, really made it like a business, that's when I felt confident. Okay, go ahead, shut up that part of your brain that is so scared.
Yeah, I know.
And just do it. And
that reptilian brain, you keep you locked up for a little bit. Now, you do realize that wars have been fought over, real estate for like centuries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's been valuable for quite some time. It's going to continue to be valuable, but yet you found a way to do something that I think is interesting. You found a way to make it cash flow. And that's definitely something I want to make sure that we get a second to talk about. But how do you make this transition? I mean, many people in their minds are like probably at the same place. They're like, ooh, I think real estate is going to work out for me. Great. How do you transition from someone who's going to the 45-minute commute, by the way, that's gnarly. And over to wanting to do this other thing. How did you internally develop the courage to even begin to approach your wife and go, you know what? Here's something I want to do. Where does that courage come from? What did that first day feel like? Like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. I mean, I'm sure your hand had to be shaking the moment you turned in the notice saying, look, guys, I'm done.
I was sick. I mean, I was physically sick that day before I knew I was going to quit.
Nice.
That's how I kind of handled it. My body just kind of broke down and just very worried, very scared. But I just knew in my heart, in my gut, like this, I can't be a corporate person. It's just not, I wasn't happy. I didn't love it. I wasn't getting like the Sunday night blues. I was getting the Friday blues, anticipating the weekend going by so fast, and then Monday coming. Right. And I didn't feel like I was contributing. So I'm making rich guys even richer. Right? I mean, that wasn't fulfilling at all for me.
No doubt. Now, at this point though, you're in the situation where you're dealing with your life, your wife, and all the things that go along with that. And I get it, but yet you still develop the courage to follow through. And that's commendable, because I know there are many people who would like to develop that courage to still follow through, but have not yet done so. But then you did something even more miraculous. You took this person who you were and you said, you know what? I'm going to put on my cape and mask and I'm going to go find my own superhero tights and start helping other people. Now, I have to ask, what on earth inspired you to believe that you could help other people do similar things to what you're doing?
Depression.
Okay.
So I got to a point where I was flipping. I was creating, all this passive income, and I was kind of just to a point where, if you've done something for 10 years, 12 years, you need a new challenge.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I've got this down. So I'll admit it. I went to a therapist, and she's like, Mark, you need to be more fulfilled now. She's like, yeah, the business is going great, but you need something more. She's like, why don't you help people do what you do? And I said to her, and I distinctly remember my eyebrows being raised. I'm like, you want me to create my own competition? I'm like, really? She's like, that's really how you think of it? She's like, how big is your market?
Nice.
And I'm like, yeah, it's huge. So she's like, you can have this mentality, or you can have an abundance mentality. And she's like, and you could be the pebble in the pond, because you're not just helping one person when you help them financially, right? It ripples out. And now you're helping them and their family. And those people then, it touches everyone that they touch and helps them, because at the end of the day, life is about relationships. And so if I can just, be that small improvement by helping somebody financially so that their relationships are stronger, because what are the top 3 things we always, fight about, right? What is it? Kids, sex, and money. Well,
not necessarily in that order, but yes.
Not necessarily in that order, but those are like the 3 big things that people always fight about in relationships. So now I'm helping out the money aspect, and I'm loving it. So I'm much more fulfilled. And you know how it is when someone, calls you or emails you or, lets you know how excited they are. They just closed their first deal,
Right.
and it's all because of you.
Right.
And how their life, you get to see the evolution of how their life is changing.
Yep.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
And so that's another part of contribution that really, motivates me, helps me get out of the bed, really early in the morning and continue doing this.
Yeah. I last year we had the privilege of retiring 2 particular people using our information, and they let us know, and it was just like, wow, that's amazing.
It's amazing. It's not just them that you're helping,
yeah,
because everyone they touch,
right?
Think of all that time now they can spend with their family and how that improves, those people's lives.
Right. It's
all because of you.
It's crazy to think that you could have that kind of impact today. I mean, many of us walk around thinking we don't have any impact whatsoever. And it's been a series of choices for you. It's a series of choices for anyone listening. And I like what you said, though, because that feeling of contribution is huge. Once, as you go up, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you got to get to that point of significance, that point where you're doing something other than just working for work's sake or just working for the money. And I appreciate you letting us know how you uncovered that, that was the next step for you, that you were depressed. I got bored personally. I spent way too much money on camera equipment and helicopters. And I was just asking friends, what do I do? I need help. I'm bored. So
yeah,
that this is good. Now that time to make that switch, when you did that, what was that like, that first person? Because there's always that first person where you go, okay, I'm going to do this. Are they going to really do it? Are they going to listen? Is anyone out there? Do they care? That had to be a whole new, the first time the superhero puts on the outfit and tries to save somebody, it's not always the best experience.
Yeah. I remember I hired a consultant to help me organize that part of the business.
Got it.
And he basically said, look, create like this landing page and give something of value for free. And I remember looking back now and just embracing the suck. I was so bad at this. My videos are terrible. Everything looked bad. But sure enough, I discovered I had a market. And my first client, I remember he called and I just had like a little blog post on my site. I said, if you want to learn this, contact me. And it was just as simple as that. And I had no idea of what I was going to, do as far as coaching. So all I did was I called up my consultant. I said, well, I've got a client. Now what do I do? He's like, record everything you do and make that a program. Yep. And that's how it started. And that's what I did. And, so.
That's funny. I like that because that's exactly what happened. I was at a networking event. Guy said, hey, will you teach me everything you know? I'm like, sure. Don't even know what that means at the moment, but it didn't matter. It just meant that I was going to teach him everything I knew, and I knew to record everything as I did it, and that was it. It was like, okay, let's just start there and kind of go. Now, at this point, I'm sure somebody is wondering, how does land cash flow? You've got to explain this to us.
Right. We got this, the most illiquid asset in real estate.
Right.
How do I do this?
Correct.
Okay. So basically in my niche, right? So I'm not buying, multi-million-dollar tracts of land, right? I'm going after tracts of land that are outside or, in the path of growth. So more rural, right? Properties that are more inexpensive. And I want to target people that have two attributes. Number one, they live out of state. And number two, they owe back taxes. So when we don't value something, we don't pay on it. So then we send them an offer that's really, really low. I mean, you'd be surprised how nasty people get when they get my letters. So but there are a percentage of people that are like, yeah, I want to sell my land. So we go ahead and we buy it pennies on the dollar. And then we create this irresistible offer. I like to do a car payment, maybe $197 down, $197 a month, or $500 down, $250 a month, right? Depending on the property. And we'll sell it within 30 days on a land contract because not everybody can pay, say, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for a piece of property, right? But everybody can afford a car payment for the most part. And on a land contract versus, let's say, a deed of trust, which would be a traditional real estate use of putting a lien on a property, where the owner owns that property, and then you would have to foreclose on your lien, right? A land contract, the property stays in my name. So as I'm getting these payments, and let's say they miss a payment, then the property is still in my name, and I can quickly resell that property and go on. So it's almost like a bond, if you will, if people fall out, which because we don't do credit checks on purpose, because I want it to be a bond, we do have a high default rate. It's about 30%. But we sell it real fast again, 30 days later.
Right. Exactly.
Get that down payment again and go on and on and on. So we usually get our principal out within either within the down or within the first 12 months.
Okay, hold on. I want to make sure everybody understood exactly what you just said, especially when you said you get your principal back within the down payment.
Right.
Because I don't know if they understand numerically what that means. So please expound upon that.
Are you tired of letting good cash flow generating ideas go to waste? Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready to apply for a complimentary, yes, that means free, one-on-one breakthrough session. Take action now. Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/ready. Before we get back to today's episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, your host, Jay Massey, has some important insights to share with you.
Let me guess. Right about now, you're thinking about land. You're like, what on earth are we talking about? Hey, real estate comes in all forms and fashions, and it's only limited by your creativity. And as you can hear, that is what we are talking to, a very creative individual who's going out there to find a way to put raw land to great use. That's the fun part about being an entrepreneur, is that you can finally get paid for your ideas and reap the full value if you so decide to put your mind to it. Well, I don't want to delay any longer, so let's get back to it.
Okay, so let's say I buy a property for $1,000, right? 40 acres for $1,000. Now the true...
Whoa. How many acres?
40 acres.
I just want to make sure people are hearing this. Keep going.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So again, pennies on the dollar, right? The true market value of that property. Now we're going to go and we're going to extrapolate time value of money. I might hold that note for 15 years, right? So 15 years from now, that property will be worth, let's say, $20,000. So we get $1,000 down, and then we make it a car payment, maybe $250 a month at an easy interest rate, maybe 8.7%. So we're not, most people on land, it's like 11%, but I do a little bit lower, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then they make their payments, and at the end of that 15-year term, we go ahead and we provide title insurance and we convey ownership to that property, to the person. But now with my $1,000 down, that second month's payment of $250 is all profit. And so you can figure out the ROI on that. It's huge.
It's larger than the average bear, which is great.
Yeah, yeah. And let's say that I need cash, right? And Jay, you've been paying on that note for 2 years, which we would call it seasoned.
Yes.
And the property, you have the note for $20,000. Well, don't you think I could easily find an investor that would want that property for, say, $10,000?
No, I think you could find 15.
For $15,000, exactly. Now again, because it's raw land, they don't want to own that land. So we basically come up with an agreement for them that if you have to default, we'll go ahead and resell it for you and get you back on, get your money, back in working.
Got it. Excellent.
Yeah.
So this becomes an excellent strategy for someone who's busy doing something other than what you do full time. That's what I'm hearing. Correct.
I've got a student. He's a full-time firefighter. He does this 2 days a week, and 2 hours a day. And he's been doing it for a couple years. He has now exceeded his passive income has now exceeded his firefighter salary in Massachusetts. And those guys do pretty well. So he's doing 6 figures passively.
Say that again. I think that I want everybody to hear it.
He's making 6 figures passively just by buying and selling raw land.
And here's the thing, everyone. There are so many ways to skin the real estate cat at the end of the day. And this is the very strategy that he says is the best passive income model on the planet. Now, I'm going to admit, it's pretty darn good, but I still don't think it's the best. And you know that.
I know that. It's the best. There's no tenants, no toilets, no termites, no trash. I don't need to protect. It's a one-time sale.
I got it. I hear you.
What's better?
Don't you really want to go there? What's better? There's so many different things that are better. Does it require more work? Yes. What I'm talking about will require more work. You're absolutely right. So from the work standpoint, yeah, you win. Great. But
that's all I wanted to hear you say.
Well, from the is that it? That was it. So we're good now.
I'll take it.
Okay. Win. All right, got it. You just wanted to hear the words "you win." Got it. So
exactly.
Because as I said before, the one asset or the one benefit from real estate you don't get in that model is depreciation, and that for some is huge. When you can put yourself and master your AGI with it to the point to where you owe no taxes, that's kind of cool. Now,
gee, can't I invest this land in a self-directed IRA? And
you could
grow tax deferred,
but tax deferred isn't no taxes. That's all I'm saying. All right, it's still deferred. Right. I'm hearing you. I'm not saying what you've got is great. I believe you. That's why I want everybody to know. Look, here's another way you can go out there and make some cash flow happen. And I agree with you. And then there's a time in my head where I can see myself even going to do a few thousand of these. Because, to be honest, we'd have to move them much faster than you said. Was it 10 acres? That was that first one, the 10 half acre. I'm like, that's not going to make me too excited.
Right.
But we have to move much faster on that. But at the end of the day, there's a position, there's a reason to do this. This is very similar to what we do when we carry financing on single family houses or something. It's very, very similar in that particular essence. So it makes total and complete sense in that regard.
Right. So, and it's simple, and you have a low barrier to entry.
Oh, yeah,
you don't have to go out and raise money. In fact, you don't need any money.
Yeah. Well, How do you do the auction part then? Because
Well,
that's interesting to me.
well, basically what we would do is, I mean, I guess you would need some money to do a letter writing campaign,
Okay.
right? But let's say that you've got a piece of property that I want and I don't have any money. Well,
Got it.
you're distressed, so I'll do an option with you.
Got it.
So for a $50 option, I'll market that property for 95 days. And if I can make money on the other end of it or wholesale it, then we'll just double close it, or we'll assign the contract.
Yeah. Well, I made the assumption that you were just still going to the auction. What you just said is you went seller direct. So now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. That totally. Again, this is what you're doing. That's exactly how I started, except I did it with houses, and you just did it with raw land. So, which begets one of the questions is, how do you find? You said you sell them online, because I've sold all my property by finding the person. So I'm curious, how did you find the buyers?
Yeah. So the buyers are out there, and there is definitely different niches of people that love raw land. The military love raw land. Have you heard of Nat Geo Preppers, that show?
No.
They're kind of like survivalists, but they call themselves preppers. There's millions of preppers in this country that are hoping for the best, preparing for the worst, and they want somewhere to bug out to. So you can niche your way in your marketing to find these people. And I mean, you can sell property on Craigslist with the right keywords, and it doesn't cost you anything in marketing dollars.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is why he's the superhero when it comes to land. I know these are new. This could be new concepts for many of you. I know that his techniques for finding the buyers are definitely something I hadn't heard of. And that's why it's important for us to continually keep our mind open when it comes to creating cash flow. So when someone is getting started with this particular, strategy, what resources do they actually need? Like, what must they have? You got to have this, otherwise it's not going to work, Mark.
You've got to have some education as far as due diligence, because if you don't know how to do your due diligence with raw land, yikes.
Right.
That can get you into serious trouble. And so that is really, really key. I mean, you've got to understand ingress and egress, legal access. You have to be able to look at, topography, soil sometimes. And all these things can be outsourced, Jay. It's not like I go out to see these properties. Using technology and crowdsourcing, I can get a whole property report within a day.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, but just so that we're clear, we haven't in this conversation given anybody anywhere near enough information to start tomorrow with and just going out there to buy land. Yes?
Yeah. I mean, that would be really irresponsible.
I just wanted to be clear before someone says, I'm just going to go buy a piece of land right now.
That you got to get educated. And, there's tons of resources to do that. And, I mean, come on, Jay, everything's online now.
I know, right?
But if you want to save yourself time, we have a whole package to teach you. But if you're not in that situation, there's tons of places to go to learn about land due diligence and what you need to look for.
Absolutely. Now, in this transition period or transformation period, really, what have been some of the biggest entrepreneurial lessons, I would say, that you've learned?
Discipline.
Oh.
Discipline. The discipline
He said the D word. Keep going. This is going to be good.
Yeah, to have the focus every day and think to yourself, what are the two most important things what is this business about? And at the end of the day, Jay, this is about deal flow and marketing.
Yep.
Right? Everything else is ancillary. Everything else. And then you need to step back and have the discipline to create systems, because we don't want to have another job for ourselves. We want a business. I want my children to be able to take this over, right? I want to be able to die tomorrow and my family's fine because the business is running on autopilot.
Yep. Yeah.
And you know, when you first start, like the first, I think 3 or 4 years, I did everything myself, everything. And it never occurred to me, oh my gosh, because I was having a lot of fun doing it. But if you want to get to the next level and start thinking like an entrepreneur, then you really have to start creating systems and having that discipline at every task and say, is that task better done by me or somebody else? And so I'm always thinking about comparative advantage.
You know, most of the time, the answer is somebody else.
The answer is somebody else. So, you know, and so it's funny because like sometimes my students are like, well, I did this and this. I'm like, okay, but think about the comparative advantage. You know, LeBron James might be able to type 100 words per minute, and he needs a type of letter. Right? He can type 100 words per minute, and he needs to type a letter.
Right.
But the time that he's taking to type a letter, he could be out doing a Nike commercial that builds his brand, and that's really where he should be spending his time. He shouldn't be doing anything else except playing basketball.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That would be funny too. He should do a commercial with him at the typewriter. Simply that in and of itself. That would be funny. I think
so. Even if you're really good at something like, you know, web development or tech, like, you know what I mean? Like, still, there's someone better out there because your time needs to be spent, you know, building your business and keeping your focus on the two things that really make you money in real estate, which is deal flow and marketing.
Indeed. So with all that being said, we've got to now have that faithful conversation. I want to know, what was the largest mistake you've made so far?
Oh my gosh, Treasure Lake.
Notice how quickly it came up. I just want everybody to notice he knew exactly what it was. There was no hesitation.
I was thinking about yachts and mansions and you know, a jet. Like I was going to make millions of dollars on this deal because it took me 3 years to negotiate this deal. It was a big, beautiful development in Western Pennsylvania outside of Pittsburgh. And it had 3 lakes, 2 PGA rated golf courses, beautiful $1 million homes, but it was overdeveloped. And I made a deal. I was picking up the property for nothing, Jay, nothing. And I had a deal with the Property Owners Association because the Property Owners Association fees were maybe $900 a year for this development. So I was going to pick up 1,000 properties, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun. And guess what happened, Jay?
Oh, it wasn't fun.
Oh, 2008 happened, Jay. Nice. And you know, it's the first time that I broke even on a deal. I haven't lost money on a deal, but when I factored in my time, I really broke even on this deal. And we could not give these lots away. Nobody wanted to be in this community because of the Property Owners Association fees. And I had such a small, tight market of people that I could market to that would even want those properties. And the local builders were thinking to themselves, well, I was buying these properties just for a little bit more than what he's, what he paid for them. So why should I pay retail from Mark? And I couldn't sell the property. Wow. It was really tough.
Yet you made it through. Went
back to my bread and butter, which was the rural properties that people want that have low taxes and no fees.
Well, and here's the thing. Here's the thing that I'm trying to underscore is that when you cross that line over to being an entrepreneur, once you put on the cape, there's usually no going back. You know, you put on the mask, you put on the cape, you're stuck. Even if your cape gets raggedy and your mask is torn, you're going to find a way to figure it out. You didn't run back and say, okay, I'm done. I'll go be an investment banker again. That too is a decision.
Right. Yeah, no. And when a lot of my competitors who were doing a lot better than me because they were leveraging, went under, I had a big market to myself for a couple years. Even though the properties were harder to sell in 2008, 2009, I was still getting those monthly, or I should say daily checks coming in automatically on payments, right? So that allowed me to be very comfortable, but it was still an adjustment, and I had to pivot and look at, it really forced me to be a better business person too. It was actually a blessing in disguise.
It's funny how that's the case. The thing that freaks us out, scares us, at least in the moment, or I'll say scares me in the moment, turns to be the very training ground that I probably needed from the beginning, and helps us to become something bigger, better, badder in all the ways that we're talking about. So here's the question now. For the person who's like, because I get this, and I'm guessing you get this, because I get it a lot.
Right.
Well, I wanna do it, but I don't want to make any mistakes, and I want to get it right the first time. Is that even possible?
No, not at all. In fact, I don't know any endeavor worth doing where you're going to achieve perfection. Nothing worth doing. And getting back to when I first started, Land Geek, I had to embrace the suck. It just had to be good enough.
Yep.
Right? I think good enough doesn't get enough merit to it, or, people don't talk about it enough. I was listening to an interview, and this woman was saying, I'm not into half-assery. Well, good enough is not half-assery.
Right.
Right? Good enough is you did your best, and now you're going to ship it, and you're going to do it. Right. At some point, you got to buy the property and take that leap. It's not that you didn't, it's not going to be perfect.
No, never. In fact,
it's never perfect.
I say two things. I say it's imperfectly done is better than perfectly undone.
I love that,
because otherwise you never ever get started. You won't let yourself go out there and try, and just understand that's one of the things. It's just part of the process. There's no avoiding it. Okay. And you gotta get to the point to where, you know what? I always tell people to fail fast, fail forward, fail frequently, because the sooner you get through that, then you can get closer to that vision of perfection that you have and holding on to in your head that you actually think is the first version. I mean, this is why our English teachers, if they said anything, they was like, start with a rough draft, because you knew the rough draft by definition wasn't supposed to be the final version. And even though you spent 10,000 hours reading, the first draft of your business is not going to be the final version in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I love the Japanese term kaizen.
Right.
Which is just small, daily, incremental improvements.
Constant and never ending.
It's never ending. And it's never going to be perfect.
Indeed. So I'm guessing at this point, there's probably one or two people who are like, all right, I want to get more information from this guy. How can they find you? That's also known as, how can we stalk you, Mark?
Yeah, stalk me at thelandgeek.com. It's thelandgeek.com. And you can download for free the Passive Income Blueprint and get the ebook, How to Avoid the 3 Fatal Land Buying Mistakes. And you can check out the podcast, which Jay's on, the Best Passive Income Model podcast. And you can even hear us argue some more.
That's true, because there are many passive income models. I just don't think that one's the best, but that's okay. It's all right. So here's the question then. Final question.
Sure.
For the person listening right now who's considering for the first time in their life, they're probably on their way to the superhero outfit store right now, picking out their cape and going, ooh, do these cufflinks match? They're on the way there, ready, beginning, but they're still feeling like you felt the day before you actually let go of your prior employment. What would you say to them?
Good for you. If you're not scared, there's something wrong with you.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. So feel the fear, feel the fear, and go and do it anyways. Yeah. But don't ignore it. Embrace it, and know that if you weren't feeling this way, it's probably not something worth doing anyways. If you're not a little scared and a little excited at the same time, this probably isn't for you.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, life is short. I mean, go out there and make a difference and make a dent and, and, do those things that are scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I always equate business to skiing. If you've ever gone skiing, it's a little scary. And if you're not falling, you're probably not skiing hard enough.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. So, I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time here to share with everyone yet another way to create cash flow that they may not have considered, and just some of the lessons that you've learned along the way.
Thanks, Jay. I'm happy to share with everybody the best way to make passive income.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? It means go over to thelandgeek.com because I'm guessing that you're going to learn something because it's another way. This could be the way that you finally find your ability to get into the real estate market and make that passive income. Who knows? This could be the retirement strategy you've been waiting to hear. Just remember, whatever you're going to do, go out there, fail fast, fail forward, and fail frequently, but do so with some guidance from Mark even. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.